All right. Now we're going to talk about these bad boys right here. We're going to talk about some Jennifer Aniston's, Zimbabwe's, Osama bin Laden,
Let's do it.
whatever you want to call it. Um, but we're going to be talking about nicotine pretty much in its pure form. We're not going to be talking
Yeah.
about nicotine in conjunction with tobacco products like you see in cigars and cigarettes. We'll be just talking about nicotine in its pure form. I want to say that I obviously, since I have this right here, I personally use Zins. Um, but I use Zins honestly almost as like a pick me up to do more work. So like if I have to lock in for some kind of assignment or if I'm video editing, programming for my clients and I'm feeling a little dragged in the afternoon, I'll throw Zen in. And one thing that I noticed personally, I definitely notice an increase in cognitive focus for myself. And I was just telling my girlfriend this recently that if I had discovered Zins while I was in PT school, it would have been a total game changer for me because there were so many times in PT school where I was just exhausted after working a full day and I would have to sit down to study for an exam for 2 hours, but I don't want to have a cup of coffee because it's already 6, 7 o'clock at night. And if I have a cup of coffee, then I'm going to be up all night. Whereas if I had discovered Zins, I would have just thrown a Zinni in and then locked in for a little bit right there. So that's one thing I noticed. And another thing that I have noticed for myself, I sometimes do notice a slight increase in like heart rate when I first like put it in. Um, and a little bit of
Pause.
a little bit of some uh dry mouth, probably from the pouch. So that's why I always say you got to have a Zin beverage along with it. You got to have something to sip while you're zinning. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, even when it comes to like treating like patients and stuff, when I like work a long day, like I'll sometimes throw a Zin in if need be. Now, let's see. We both dug up a few research articles. Also, let's preface that
Yeah. So
we haven't looked into all the research pertaining to nicotine,
yeah.
stuff like that. But we picked a few articles that were interesting. Um, I'll kind of let Sean take the lead in terms of kind of physiologically explaining a little bit how like nicotine works and stuff like that, and then we go from there.
Yeah. So one thing I'll say is like this is definitely a little bit out of our expertise, but
Right.
because this is like neuroscience and stuff, but it's interesting to me because a lot of people use them, obviously. Like I've done it on and off. Like it's definitely beneficial. So
It's
yeah, like
huge amongst our demographic right now. Like in your
yeah.
20s and stuff like that, everybody is zinning for the most part. So that's why like I thought it was like would be a interesting topic to discuss.
Yeah. So like if you look back at some of the research papers, like the first thing they'll say is there's over like 40 studies that show that if you smoke cigarettes, you get less Parkinson's disease. And it's really weird because smoking is obviously terrible for you.
Mm,
Like lung function, vascular function, heart function, like whatever. But the one thing that smokers don't do is get Parkinson's. So that led people to say, I remember I heard this one guy say is like people smoke for the nicotine, but they get killed by the tar.
yeah.
So nicotine's addictive, obviously.
Mm,
But it's probably and like inhaling it is probably not good for sure because it's just
mm,
like a lung irritant. Um, but yeah, there's like some studies will show up to like a 60% reduction in Parkinson's for people that smoke who don't smoke, and it's kind of like a dose response too. So like people in these studies that smoked more got less Parkinson's, but those are just like correlations, so it's not a definitive thing. But because it's been observed so many times, people started to look into it. So
yeah.
yeah, essentially like at least for the brain, there's spots in your brain that have receptors for nicotine. So if you consume it it binds to these receptors and it has like a bunch of like downstream effects
Mhm.
or whatever. So that's like a plausible mechanism for why it's beneficial.
And also, let me just throw in right here because I'm not a neuroscientist or anything, but I've taken neuroanatomy, I've taken neurological PT and stuff like that, so I know a little bit. But where in the brain Parkinson's affects, it's a part of your brain called the basal ganglia, which the basal ganglia is pretty much in the center of your brain, and it connects different areas of your brain together. And in that basal ganglia is where we house dopamine. And nicotine is a precursor to dopamine in the brain as well. And the way
Yeah,
that people who have people who have Parkinson's have a decrease in size in basal ganglia and overall stimulation. And the basal ganglia, its main function in the body pretty much is to uh send signals from the brain down to the body that provide movement and motion, which is why when you see people who have Parkinson's disease, they are very rigid, first and foremost, and a lot of their movements are slow. And the drugs that they take to try to combat this are drugs that are precursors to dopamine in the body, like levodopa, for example.
yeah. No, that was good. Yeah, so pretty much. Um, so yeah, there's like a anatomical reason, there's associations that it could be beneficial. When people have given nicotine in various forms in research studies to humans, a pretty consistent effect, I would say like really consistent. It's kind of, you can't even deny it, is that their cognition improves. So whether that's short-term memory, working memory, attention, um, things like that. But it's not a dose-dependent response in some of these studies. So obviously, if you take too much, it's not like the more the merrier.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's a benefit to it. If you do brain imaging of people after they've had nicotine, whether even if they smoke it, but even if it's like a nicotine gum or infusion or something like that, you'll see more oxygenation in certain brain regions, like the prefrontal cortex,
Mhm.
which controls like a lot of these cognitive functions. So there's a ton of research that kind of, if you combine it all together, that nicotine by itself is has some beneficial effects. Obviously, it's addictive, which is
Mhm.
not good, and it's not good for like children or adolescents that are like prepubescent and their brain is still developing. Like it could be neurotoxic because I don't really know why, but I'm not a brain scientist, but kids that smoke and kids that take a nicotine, and even like in laboratory like studies of this, is it's neurotoxic. So you probably shouldn't like play around with stuff that messes with your brain when you're a
Right.
kid. So I think
Right.
we can all kind of agree that that's probably right.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, in adults, it has clear cognitive benefits, and can enhance cognition when used appropriately in the right forms.
For
So
sure.
yeah, like nicotine gum and things like that. And
Mhm.
then yeah, like in itself, like nicotine is just a natural compound from a leaf.
Yeah.
Um, like it's from a tobacco leaf, and but it's in other foods and stuff too. But I think it got a bad rap just because people obviously smoked it,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
there's a bunch of
the cigarette companies put nicotine in there so that people would get addicted and so that they'd keep buying more cigarettes.
yeah. So like the addiction thing is real.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of things are addictive, would be my argument. Like I'm probably addicted to exercise,
Yeah.
um, certain foods, but like it's all about balance. If you're not just like mainlining nicotine and you use it appropriately, like you can get the benefits without the downsides.
Right.
And that just kind of goes with most things, not everything, like
Yeah.
certain drugs and stuff like that. But um, yeah, there's clear cognitive effects, and these are like doctors and physicians and
Mhm.
scientists that are saying all this stuff. Like it's not just a bunch of like kids on the street saying like, "Oh, nicotine's good for you." Like
Yeah.
it's actually measurable.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I'm just going to read a couple highlighted points. This is from an article that says nicotine rebalances NAD plus homeostasis and improves aging related symptoms in male mice by enhancing NAMPT activity. It showed that nicotine, a metabolite of NAD plus metabolic pathway, has been found to possess anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective properties, yet the underlying molecular mechanisms remain unknown. And then also in this same study, let me scroll down here. It improved neurogenesis and inhibited some inflammation in age-related mice. And then it improved cognition in aged mice. They said indicating could protect the memory. And then here's where we go. All right. So then they were also saying stuff like it decreases food consumption typically, which can lead to a reduction in body weight. And they even went as far as saying even preventing diabetes, which I mean, I don't think nicotine is preventing diabetes in any kind of way, but it is an appetite suppressant. And I do notice that myself that whenever I do Zyn, I tend to not be hungry. And even if I am hungry and I throw in a Zyn, that'll kind of kill my appetite. And then let me bring up this other study that is entitled Nicotine, Its Metabolism, and an Overview of Its Biological Effects. This
Yeah,
study,
so before you get into that one though, I
go
just want
ahead.
to say on the one that you just talked about, like that was in one of like the best science journals that is out there. So it's called Nature, but it's
Yeah.
like really hard to get stuff into there. Like it wasn't just something that, Zach just found on Reddit or something like
Hmm.
that. Like if you read it, it's pretty fascinating.
Right.
But yeah, it just like remodeled the metabolism of NAD in the brain, which goes down with aging, and also like in the muscle and the liver and the heart.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was in mice, but they did some cognitive tests on the mice. They gave it to them, I think, for like 12 months. And um, yeah, I just kind of wanted to say that just
Hmm.
to put some context to it.
For sure. For sure. This other one that I'm looking at right now entitled Nicotine, Its Metabolism, and an Overview of Its Biological Effects. This one basically said, let me put down here. So they talk about nicotine and addiction, and they also are talking about the beneficial effects of nicotine. And by Doomery et al., it says, there's some evidence that indicates that nicotine stimulates dopaminergic neurons in the mesolimbic system and releases dopamine in these reward centers. It has also been shown that nicotine facilitates electrical brain activity of brain reward areas in rats. Um, and then it also said it suggested that nicotine reduces body weight at least by two mechanisms. It can reduce appetite and increase metabolic rate. Nicotine also induces serotonin release, which can help with weight loss as well. And then in a separate study, let me try to find it here. Let's see where we at here. Actually, this might be the first one. Um, but anyway, so basically this in this one study they looked at different groups. One took a 3 milligram pouch, another one took a 6 milligram pouch, and then another one took a 30 milligram uh pouch. And they found that the person who was taking the 30 milligram pouch had the highest spikes in heart rate, and also they measured a little bit of like arterial wall stiffness, and they noted some mild increases, but they said nothing severely notable, just something that they noted. Um, and another thing that I just wanted to throw out there too, this is separate from the study, but just like anything, um, the more you take of nicotine and stuff, you're going to build a tolerance towards it. So you could start taking 1 milligram and be like good. But then if you continue doing that throughout the day over and over again, that 1 milligram is easily going to turn into 3 milligrams. Three will turn into six, six will, and it'll just keep going more and more and more. Like for my friends who have been zinning for years and who do a lot, like these dudes brought over 9 milligrams in to to my crib the last time they were here, and I was just like, dude, I would be on the moon. My head would be lifted to the moon if I put 1 9 in right now. So
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
yeah,
And I think there's some stuff to that too. Like if you they've probably done this like in mice or something, but those receptors in your brain can kind of get desensitized
right.
to it. So like the more that you, and that's like anything, like insulin and glucose and blood sugar, like
Yeah.
if you just keep kind of like saturating the system, eventually you're not gonna like have enough to, it's not gonna work properly. Like the receptors aren't gonna work properly. It kind of
Hmm.
goes with anything that you can take exogenously, really.
Hmm.
Testosterone, sugar, all that stuff. So yeah, it's just a balance,
Yeah. And one thing that
you just can't get too crazy with it.
right. And one thing that I saw pretty consistently in the research articles I was reading pertaining to nicotine was that slight elevation in heart rate. Again, slight. Um, every study that I looked at, they were still in that normal range of 60 to 100 beats per minute at rest. But they did note
Hmm.
that, like, for example, if one subject, their resting heart rate was 60 and they put a nicotine pouch in, it might have raised to like 66, 67.
Yeah,
You know what I
which is
mean?
like, yeah, which is like, I don't know if that's
Yeah. And the
like
study,
maybe it's relevant for someone that has a really high resting heart rate.
yeah.
Like the lower is usually better.
Yeah.
But it
And
depends
the
how they measured it too. And
Yeah, and the study that compared the 3 milligram to 6 milligram to 30 milligram pouches, the 30 milligram had the highest increase in heart rate, which I mean, 30 milligrams
30's
of
30's
30 milligrams of
crazy.
nicotine would be insane to take. I would pass out. I would throw up everywhere.
Yeah.
I would throw up
I don't, yeah.
everywhere. Easy.
That's insane that
30 milligrams.
they did a study on that.
But
Yeah.
yeah, they looked at that. But yeah, just for the higher like the slight increase in like heart rate and then also in mild stiffening and like arterial walls. It also is going to depend on the
Yeah.
individual. Like how healthy is the person to begin with? If someone's obese, already has cardio like certain cardiovascular diseases or is on high blood pressure medications and things like that, um, probably zinning and doing nicotine isn't the best for you because you already have stiffening in your blood vessels and your heart's already not functioning appropriately. Whereas, if someone's in really good shape and is using things sporadically, I the way I see it is it's probably not doing as much damage to that healthy person, given it's in small doses sporadically.
Yeah, for sure. And as far as like the arterial stiffening, like I've done that measurement before in the lab and like for studies and stuff. And with all those techniques, there's like a certain amount of like measurement error. So like if it was like a really small increase, it could just be like within the measurement error of the device. And yeah, I would like to actually read that and see what it was because I if it did go up, it was probably just transiently, and like whether that has any like serious health effects is like you said, if your arteries are pretty relaxed and not stiff, like you're healthy, taking nicotine's probably like it's not going to stiffen them up. I mean, I wouldn't think, unless you're doing like those 30 milligram ones a bunch of times a day, maybe.
You're putting 330s in at once. You got 90 milligrams of nicotine in your mouth. Um, but another thing I looked at, I think it was maybe in one of the studies that uh, you showed, that they were saying actually that smoking, like a cigarette, and that method of taking in the nicotine um, gets a higher uptake from your blood-brain barrier versus the nicotine pouch.
Yeah, I would believe that. Generally, most drugs, any drug really, inhalation is the quickest way to get it into your bloodstream.
Hmm.
So, it's just like how like your lung works and how it gets taken up and like diffuses into the blood vessels. But yeah, inhalation of anything, that's why I mean, I guess like injection is probably, but I think inhalation is still even faster than that. I'd have to check, but yeah, so that's probably why they saw that, and that's
Hmm.
probably plays into the addictive nature of cigarettes, which I would imagine. I don't know how you would like determine this, but if you were to compare like how addictive the pouches are compared to smoking, I would imagine smoking is more addictive. One, just because it hits you way faster,
Right.
um, and you can get the effect quicker. Like somebody, like I've seen people smoke cigs in like like 5 minutes. Whereas like if you were to chew like nicotine gum or like the pouch, like it takes more time for that to kind of get into your system through the brain and things
Yeah.
like that. But
Isn't
yeah, I
it,
mean it.
isn't there something, I forget what it's called. Like when someone just likes the act of smoking, like having something like in their mouth.
Uh,
Isn't that called something?
Yeah, but it is. I just don't know what it. I
Yeah.
can't.
I'm
But
trying
yeah,
to,
like some people are like that. They just
they have an
like to be
oral,
doing
it's an
something.
oral fixation. That's what it's called. It's an oral fixation.
Interesting.
So like my aunt, for
Interesting.
example, was a smoker for years, and she switched from smoking cigarettes to vaping, which no better there. But when she finally decided to stop smoking cigarettes, one thing that helped her along with the nicotine patches to just like wean her off was she would just get a straw and just like kind of bite on a straw because she said she just like
Yeah.
wanted something like near her mouth, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's something
I
that she
mean, I
says
could
helped
see
her.
that because like yeah, that's like a really small, subtle habit that if you do it for so many years, and it's like, oh, like there's nothing for me to hold in my hand or put in my
Right.
mouth or something like that. Like, so that's probably like another nature of the addiction that you don't really think about. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. One,
And yeah, I think like the effects too are probably different for different people. Like I was reading this one thing that like people that like tend to smoke cigarettes more. This is not like the pouches or the gum or anything like that, but people that tend to smoke cigarettes more have slight defects in those brain areas that nicotine like functions on. So like a
right.
lot of it is like people with schizophrenia, maybe like bipolar. I
Right.
could be wrong about the bipolar, but people that are predisposed to certain cognitive brain disorders genetically, like their rates of smoking are way higher than the average population. Um, so that could potentially play into like how someone responds to taking nicotine as well. Like some people like it, some people don't. Um,
Yeah.
but
Some
yeah,
people
super
like it,
interesting.
some people don't. Also, some people have addictive personalities and other people don't, you know?
Yeah, I just think the concept of it is like if you tell someone that you're like taking nicotine or something, they'll be like, "Oh, like what are you trying to quit smoking or something like that?" But I think that I think you should try and just like dissociate it from like no, like it's not the same thing in smoking. Like yeah, it is an addictive molecule
Hmm.
for sure, but there's also like if you do it right and you educate yourself on it, like there is benefits to be had
Yeah.
if you use it. And I'm not like recommending people do it. Like I've done it on and off, um, can like give or take, but it's definitely beneficial, I think. Like
Yeah. I mean,
if
I notice a
you're trying
benefit.
to write or focus and do stuff, like yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like I said, I definitely notice a benefit cognition wise for myself, and I don't really have like an addictive personality, so like there's been plenty of times where like I've gone just like a couple days like no nicotine, or like I go home for a week or something and no nicotine or Zins, and it's not like I have like that craving. Like I feel like some
Yeah,
people when they're smoking cigarettes, they get that craving to like go out and like smoke a cig. Whereas like, I mean, maybe it's just me, but like I don't get that craving where like, damn, like I wish I had a Zin. There are times where I'm just like, this would be helpful, but like
yeah.
I'll
I
get
do.
through it.
I definitely have somewhat of an addictive personality, but it's only with certain stuff. Like smoking cigarettes would never do it for me just because I'm like more addicted to exercising.
Hmm.
And like I know that would just severely decrease my performance in like what I'm gonna do. Um, Same thing even with like drinking. Like I don't even like getting like super drunk because then like the next day I just know I'm gonna feel like shit. And like if I want to go run, it's gonna be way worse. Or like go so yeah, it's all about just kind of
Right.
managing. I feel like everybody's got some sort of addiction,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
some are definitely worse than others. But
But
I definitely have the gene, I feel.
you got the gene.
I
I
mean, I don't know, but
I
I just think like the way that I like to exercise, I feel like that is, I mean, it's like a good addiction,
Yeah,
I
I mean
guess.
that would be the only thing that I would be addicted to, like for sure, is
And like
exercise and training.
like the only reason I say that is because there's sometimes like if I go like a day or two without doing anything, I don't want to say I get like itchy, but I'm just like, damn, like I really need to go out and like exert myself and do
Yeah,
something. Like I really like feel the need to do that, like to do something hard or and yeah, like it does feel. I remember one time it happened, and I was just thinking, I was like, damn, like that, like I feel way better now. That's kind of like an addiction. That's probably how people feel when they withdraw from like drugs and they get some drugs or something.
yeah. No, no, for sure. I 100% agree with that there. Yeah, training would be my only addiction per se, but like it's not a bad thing. And in fact, like I used to be like a lot more OCD with like my training and everything. And like I would, skip out on like hanging with friends and stuff like that because like I had to
Yeah,
hit a training session or meal prep. And I don't think like that's healthy because like you definitely
nah,
need to have some sort of balance in your life. But no, I mean I love training. I know if I don't work out for a couple of days, I feel like a piece of shit. And like if I go on a vacation for a week and I like fly somewhere, if I go to Europe or an island or something, I typically don't exercise when I'm on vacation like that. If I go home to like visit my parents and stuff, like I will exercise then.
yeah,
But if like I'm flying somewhere for a destination, I was just like I train enough throughout the year where I'm just gonna kind of just chill and do whatever. But one
chill.
of the first things I do when I get back is get right back on it. I'm just like I feel like a piece of shit because I haven't done anything for so long.
Yeah, like when I was just traveling like for work and stuff recently, like my I couldn't train as much as I usually do. Was still doing stuff, but then I remember one of my this guy I used to work with. He was saying like life just kind of gives you like built-in deload weeks, and that
Hmm.
you just should be trained consistently the entire year. Something's going to happen, and then you just kind of like take off for that a week. But it's not really a bad thing because you have this surplus of fitness and like usually you feel better when you take a break. I mean, I know I do, but
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
it's like hard for me to put that down sometimes.
Yeah,
Like unless I'm doing something fun, like a
for sure.
trip or something like that.
For sure. The last thing I want to just quickly talk about besides on the topic of cigarettes and nicotine. I've been to Europe several times and nobody rips darts, aka cigarettes, more than Europeans. These
Oh, I
motherfuckers
know, dude.
are out there in the streets just ripping cig after cig. And the craziest part is like you look around, like when I was in Spain, Portugal, Ireland, or like Holland, you look around and like there's not nearly as many obese people as there are here in America. That's not to say that they don't have adverse effects because they're smoking cigarettes, but it's more so their lifestyle. It's more so their food quality. It's also more so they're walking a lot more. I feel like there too, and they're just overall
100%.
healthier aside from the cigarette smoking. But yeah, Europeans they love to smoke darts. That's one thing
Yeah,
I
my
know.
brother was in France. Like my brother was in France maybe like a year or two ago, and like he don't like he's like never smoked a cigarette, but like they offer you one after dinner.
Yeah,
It's like a but like, they'll bring it out on like a tray. You know, like oh like do you want like a cigarette for when you're done? Like and he's like yeah, yeah. It's funny. I don't know why they like them so much, but
they love them. I feel like it's just like a part of their culture almost there.
yeah,
And the
and they're
wild
yeah,
part
like I
is
wonder if they're
the wild part is that in Europe, so like you know how like you buy cigarettes in like a store here and it'll just be like the Newport box of cigarettes, right?
yeah.
In Europe, if you go buy cigarettes in Europe, they'll have the brand of the cigarettes on it, but on the back of it is like this disgusting picture of someone got like half their mouth and jaw removed because they have cancer. And
Really?
that's on all the boxes out there, at least that I've seen when I've gone there.
No way. They still smoke. That's
Yeah,
that's
and they're
funny,
just
dude.
like fuck it. And then another thing that I just thought of is like when I was in Ireland a few years back with my boys. This is the first time I had ever seen this. Um, there was a girl at the bar, and this girl just whips out like a huge bag, and it's just a bag of
Mm.
tobacco. And then she has like rolling papers, and she's like rolling her own cigarettes, just like right there in the bar. I'd never fucking seen that before.
Wow. I mean, to be honest, that's probably healthier than like buying cigarettes with whatever they put in them.
There probably
But
is,
that
and it's
is
probably
like,
cheaper.
yeah, but that is like some next level support for smoking.
The
Like,
whole tobacco is
just,
in her purse, just like a whole bag of it, bro.
yeah, that's crazy, dude. Just fucking like walking around with a bag of tobacco and
Yeah.
papers.
Yeah, yeah, bro. A whole bag of it. I've never seen something like that. I was like, what the hell is going on over here? I
That's
thought,
nuts.
yeah. But yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to throw out there real quick on cigarettes and shit.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show that other lifestyle habits can, you know, negate the effects of other bad ones. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're gonna smoke, you might as well exercise a lot. Like you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
be better off and
Exactly.
eat healthier and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah. So to wrap up the Zen talk, first and foremost, we're not promoting Zins, and also we're not telling you to go do nicotine pouches or Zins at all. I personally do them. I'm not telling you what to do and how to live your life. Um, and the other thing is that there needs to be more studies and research on just the long-term effects of just pure nicotine, because a lot of these research articles, it's in conjunction with smoking and tobacco products, which has tar, carcinogens, and a whole other things that lead to bad health effects. So there definitely needs to be more research on just nicotine in its pure form. But one thing that's kind of like standard throughout what we were looking at is that there are some sort of cognitive benefits towards using nicotine.
yeah, yeah. And like I definitely agree. Like if you go on, like I find these papers on like PubMed, which is just like a research database. If people don't know, but if you just search nicotine, like everything is like smoking. Like it's
Right.
not just a nicotine by itself. It's like the effects of smoking and why it's bad for you. But yeah, I think that's probably just because like the nicotine pouches are pretty new.
Right.
Um, and yeah, it would be. I'd be curious to see if there's any effects on like your gums. I
Hmm.
don't really know. Like I've never seen anyone mention that.
There was
But
in the one research article two subjects that had some redness almost immediately after insertion of the pouch. But that was it. Just like mild, like gum irritation, they said.
yeah, because like when people do like chewing tobacco and stuff like that, it's not the nicotine that's ripping apart their jaw.
Right.
Um, but you know, in the honor of just being devil's advocate and playing both sides, it would be good to know if there is any effects on it because you just never know. But
Definitely.
like at least there's not a plausible thing as of now. But yeah, I mean, do it at your own volition or not. You know,
Yeah.
we're just putting the information out there, and then yeah, I would look into it if I was you. Anyone listening, because it is interesting, and it's just another natural plant molecule that you can utilize to your benefit, if you do it the right way, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. That's a good wrap up here. We got a couple minutes left. You got anything new coming out, going on, stuff that you're doing?
Um, let's see. I mean, training wise, I might do a 10-mile race in like a month from now back
Okay.
home.
Nice.
From it goes like from Haddonfield to like National Park. One of my boys is doing it, and I might just go do it with them. I'll see how my fitness is. I might sign up last
Uh,
minute, but I'm gonna try and get under an hour. Last time I did it in like 60 minutes flat.
damn.
So trying to hold like 5:55 or something like that for 10 miles.
Damn, that's booking it for 10 miles.
We'll see. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna do
Yeah.
it yet, but so yeah, I'm just starting to kind of train for that and do more specific stuff. Other than that, man, just working the day job, doing a bunch of research, the military, and
Yes, sir.
yeah, just trying to stay as fit as possible. It's starting to get cold up here, so I'm gonna start breaking out my rowing machine more and gonna get pretty fit on that for the winter time. But how about you? You just got the jujitsu?
Yeah, so next Sunday I compete in my first jiu-jitsu tournament. Um Not sure what time I'm going, probably sometime in the morning. They said they'll release the brackets on Thursday night, but competing at 168 pounds. Um just got my blue belt in jiu-jitsu as well. Um
Damn.
so yeah, so I kind of signed up for it last minute, like about maybe 3 weeks ago. So I just did a short like fight camp, like I said earlier, just changed up some of my strength training to make it a little bit more specific for the sport, and also started doing a little bit more high intensity intervals, just trying to build a gas tank specific for the sport as well as just increasing my training and stuff I got going on the mats. So yeah, excited for it. I feel like you get a little bit of nerves anytime you compete in anything, just because you compete,
Yeah.
you lay it all out on the line, but it's benefits. You learn from it, you come back better no matter what. And yeah, so looking forward to getting
Word.
into a scrap next Sunday.
Hell yeah, dude. If you're listening to this, you got to get out and compete in something. It's the
You
best
got it.
way to just push yourself and see what you're capable of. Couldn't recommend it more. Whether you're going to fight somebody, race, you just got to do it.
Yeah. Get
But
out there, compete, see what you're made of,
word.
put it on the
I think this
line.
is going to end in a second, but that was good shit.
Yep. Good stuff, bro. Till next